Hello, I am David Hochbaum, and welcome to my studio. Memory can be a funny thing. A seemingly insignificant moment in your life could wind up leaving an imprint in your mind that follows you for a lifetime. I have only a handful of vivid imprints from my early childhood that I could recall with great clarity. One of the most significant of these has inspired me to create hundreds of works, all driven by the energy and form of Peter Bruegel's Tower of Babel. The memory of my first encounter with Bruegel's Tower of Babel is still vivid. It was 1978. I was 5 or 6 years old. I remember playing at my parents' house, pulling books from a shelf, one of those books being a collection of works by Peter Bruegel. I still have that same book, and you can see here some of the handiwork of an aspiring young artist or an art critic that didn't like landscapes so much. I remember being fascinated with the Triumph of Death. Perhaps it mirrored some of the books I was into as a kid, like those of Richard Scarry. But it was the Tower of Babel that really captured my imagination. The craggly structure, with its dreamlike landscape, sunk deep into my unconscious. It was not until 2006 when I felt compelled to create a Tower of Babel of my own. It was between 2005 and 2006 when I began incorporating many more architectural elements into my work. The structures would usually serve as backgrounds or surrounding a central figure in the piece. At the same time, I was creating smaller collage pieces, quick, instinctive works, but I didn't view them as part of my larger body of work. I lacked the confidence to see them as finished pieces worthy of exhibition. So to bridge that gap, I brought this evolving idea to the Goldmine Shithouse, my collaborative art group, as a space to explore and develop it further. There's a lot of history to cover when it comes to the Goldmine Shithouse, but for the sake of this story, I'll keep it to the super abridged version. In 2002, artist and fellow SMFA Boston alum Travis Lindquist reached out to me and let me know he was moving to Brooklyn. I'd been living in Manhattan for about 8 years at the point, and I was looking forward to reconnecting with a friend. Not long after he arrived, we started getting together, collaborating, sharing sketchbooks, and painting on whatever wood panels we could find in New York City's endless supply of discarded material. We both agreed to recruit fellow artist Colin Burns, someone we knew from Boston who had already been living in New York for a while. We'd visit Colin while he bartended at Odessa Bar in the East Village. We'd bring sketchbooks, watercolors, and lots of drawing materials. We'd spend the night passing sketchbooks back and forth, drinking cocktails and listening to music. Colin was immediately hooked, and the three of us quickly realized we needed to take that creative energy out of the distracting bar scene and into one of our studios. There, we would spend entire nights making art and the following days making music. The three of us quickly realized the benefits of working collaboratively by bringing some of our individual ideas and unfinished concepts into the mix. What might have stayed as isolated sketches or half-formed thoughts suddenly had the chance to evolve into something bigger. By layering our styles and challenging each other's approaches, we broke through creative blocks and pushed beyond what any of us might have done alone. The collaborative process wasn't just about merging ideas, it was about transforming them. Soon, word spread about our weekend gatherings, which had been going on for several months. That momentum led to invitations to exhibit in galleries, where we expanded on what we had been doing over a weekend, stretching it out over 10 to 15 days. We'd often live in the spaces where we exhibited, fully immersed in the process. After our first successful show, things took off. We started doing more exhibitions and throwing art parties to raise money. We had silkscreen parties and other events, whatever it took to fund our next show. Those parties grew, and sometimes our music collaborations evolved into live performances. Whenever our exhibitions came together, so did the band. We'd play live, and the music, like the art, was spontaneous and unplanned, raw, unpredictable, and full of energy. In 2006, we were invited to exhibit in Los Angeles at Subliminal Projects, a gallery owned by artist Shepard Fairey. This was the show that I brought the Tower Project to the Goldmine Shithouse. As I often did for our collaborations, I brought a box filled with resource materials. For this piece, I'd prepared several large images of architecture. I started by laying them down in the same instinctive way that I approached my small works, with the other two artists working alongside me. Although I thought about Bruegel's Tower while working on this piece, I hadn't brought any image reference and worked strictly from memory. The result, after just a few days of working with Colin and Travis, was this big, beautiful pile of city. Working with Colin and Travis on that tower project gave me the confidence to return to my studio with renewed purpose. I took the techniques and inspiration I gained from that experience and pushed forward with them. The result was a series of structures, clusters of buildings rising into mounds, forming blocks, casting layered shadows. Over the next few years, I explored this concept relentlessly, creating hundreds of towers through various mediums like drawing, sculpture, paintings, and photography. Reflecting on this, I realized I never went back to study the original Tower of Babel image. Instead, I trusted my memory, focusing on the forms and the energy I wanted to express. That energy was drawn from the cities around me, the one I lived in and those I visited. Everywhere I traveled, I collected books and imagery of houses and architecture, constantly feeding this expanding body of work. In 2017, Lovett's Gallery in Tulsa invited me to participate in an exhibition titled Mirror Mirror, a show that encouraged artists to pay homage to works or creators that deeply inspired them. I took this as an opportunity to engage directly with Bruegel's Tower, and I decided to confront both his great and his little tower. This project became more than an homage. It was a deep study. By mirroring Bruegel's palette and structure, I realized how differently I approached my own towers. Bruegel's towers are built in deliberate, tiered layers, while mine had been more chaotic and fragmented. This study helped me see how my towers have been evolving into something uniquely mine. To reflect his structure, I began using repetitive imagery, incorporating prints of windows from cast iron buildings reminiscent of downtown New York City, echoes of neighborhoods I knew intimately, shaped by decades of growing up and later living there. Looking so closely at Bruegel's towers made me reconsider how I approach structure and detail in my own work. The first tower I made following the Bruegel project was the Tower of the Twisted Hill. Its curved form is inspired by the haunting memory of the driveway at my childhood home. The tower's tiered structure also echoes Bruegel's aesthetic. This tower became both a tribute to Bruegel and a reflection on memory and home. This tower is a convergence of influence and identity. After completing the Tower of the Twisted Hill, the towers kept coming. Each one now carrying the influence of studying Bruegel's work, woven into the foundation of the towers I had been building over the past 11 years, first sparked by collaborative projects. The towers continue to evolve as I do, constantly shifting, yet always tethered to something much older. And that connection reaches all the way back to the first time I encountered Bruegel's Tower of Babel, a moment I often think of as the time my brain switched on to art. I had seen countless paintings as a child, and I felt their emotional weight, but this was different. Bruegel's Tower struck me in a deeply personal way, sparking a relationship with art that felt intimate and lasting. The way these towers form comes from those early memories and the moment I realized how much art could speak directly to me.